All right, so today we have Rodney Roldan in nomination in the Best Documentary Feature category for the film Country and Courage. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we have a few questions for you. What made you go into documentary creation?
I think there's a lot of things that play into that. I think like as a child, I always liked storytelling, which kind of drew me into acting later on. And, as an actor, we're always looking at kind of telling other people's stories through performance. But I'm also in the military. And in the military, I'm a mass communications specialist.
Oh,
And back in 2013, I attended a defense information school where we talked about or learned they taught us how to do like news stories and documentaries and things like that for the military. Well, while I was there and afterwards, I kind of had this niche to like combine the training and the experience I had with acting and that of the army of like storytelling overseas and combine it. And then one of my first projects that I did was about a POW that was in Germany, and we actually filmed him. Well, not him, but filmed where he was at in Germany, and then filmed back in New York. And that was called Remembering Private Quagliano, and I had a lot of fun with that. And because of that, I felt like, man, you know what? I really like doing this. I'm gonna, keep on trying this and doing this with this kind of theme involved.
yes. Wow, that's wonderful. And also that you have the experience in the military. I mean, it's directly linked to the subject as well.
Exactly.
Nice. And why did you choose that particular subject actually about the veterans?
So that was to me that was kind of like a long building over time. So while I was at performing arts school, I've always read Shakespeare as a kid, but I actually fell more in love with the plays and the writings of Shakespeare while I was at performing arts school in New York. And one of the reasons is because two of the common themes that you see in Shakespeare is love and war. And there's a lot of monologues and a lot of plays that get into the psyche of the soldier.
Mhm.
And so, while reading that, I was a lot of times it was while I was doing monologues at school or for plays, I was always challenged with like incorporating the military experience with that to bring it to life more. Well, another aspect of that is, in the military, PTSD is a big problem. It's a big problem across the board with other, like sexual assault victims, people in, specific pride areas around the world. So PTSD overall is a big thing in mental health. But in the military, particularly, we always see, movies and read about it. But I don't see as a soldier myself, I didn't see much emphasis on the cure behind it or the ways to treat it. It's not a cure because it's an ongoing thing, but ways to treat it. And if you do hear about things that are used to treat PTSD, it's always invasive or pills, things like that. So
Okay.
I sat back and I said, that it's crazy. Like for me as a soldier, when I got back from Afghanistan in 2014, and I went directly to performing arts school, I remember a lot of the stuff that I saw out there was kind of alleviated through the performance, right? Because you're kind of taking something and make sense of it through art and expressing to let everybody else, hey, this is my story, but it's kind of safe because it's almost like healing you. It's putting a place to the things you've seen. So I wanted to highlight this with this documentary and put an emphasis on Shakespeare and how it's used to help soldiers with PTSD. But there's a lot of organizations out there that do that. The Crew is one of them in New York, and then Kentucky Shakespeare Stage. That so I said, okay, so I'm not the only one, obviously, that understands this. Other people know it as well. And during that, during the creation of this project, I had a great time talking to some of the professors at Berry College in Rome, Georgia, and they too have that understanding of, like in an interview, we had I used some of it in the in the documentary, but a lot of the talking and the interview I had with the professors, we went for hours talking about how these plays, like the stories of it, talk about PTSD with soldiers. And it was great to talk to like the Stephen Wolf for the Crew, how he talked about how his veterans had talked about signs of curing or having better hand control of their PTSD through performance. So I thought, man, this is something that the public should know, and it's a different subject, and it's non-invasive, and it's something different. and
Mhm.
it's not expensive as well. A Shakespeare book costs $20 at Barnes and Noble. You buy that, and you're reading monologues, but it's more of the understanding of it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a therapy through art.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's a good idea. And it was super well done, your documentary. Congrats again. So we really
Thanks.
liked it. And what do you think is the most important thing when you start a career in that field? Do you have any
So
advice?
yeah, so when sometimes to me it's like when you first started, you may not know what is the most important thing to you initially, but over time, it was for me. It was I know I was attracted to the idea of telling someone else's story, and I love history too. So I was like, oh, this is. But then as I got along through it, I felt I started to appreciate the opportunity and the not to say opportunity, but more of like the privilege of telling someone else's story. Because people that takes a lot of courage for someone to talk about something they're going through. You know, and of course, if you do documentaries on overall subject, you could say a documentary on the food industry. Yeah, you're talking about looking from the outside in, but when you're talking about documentaries that deal with someone telling a personal story, to me, that, like I said, that's a privilege for you to seep into their lives and put it on camera and for them to recreate it. So I think the most important thing is having an ear, being able to listen to people and understand that this is their story and you have to care for it and edit it and display it in such a way that it's like a delicate thing. Like, look, you're seeing this, but understand like this is something personal to this person. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the thing. It's consideration, I would say, is the one of the important things when creating documentaries.
Okay, so yes, respect, right? I,
Mm-hmm.
and can you give us a hint about your upcoming projects?
Well, I've been for the last couple of years, I've been thinking about, and I started talking to some people about doing it, but talking about human trafficking in the Atlanta region. I mean, obviously, human trafficking, we were taught about it in the army, and we see stories like you see the movie like Sound of Freedom, great movie, and you see all these subjects out there. But I feel like it doesn't. It's one of those things like if you see a problem, call the 1-800 number, right? But I don't think a lot more attention or emphasis is put towards that as well. That's one of like untapped stories that need to be told. So the next thing I want to do is to work in that field, and especially with organizations that not just help people get out of situations like that, but they help them in their lives, like do other things and get back to the community and so forth. And there's a lot of organizations in Atlanta, Georgia that do that, and that's one thing I would say. That's one of the things I want to work on next.
Okay, and you think that you might have like maybe some financing from them or some help from them?
Yeah, and I think so. Like that's one of the things, one of the hardest thing in the beginning. Like I remember when the first documentary I did, I spent like 10 grand making it. And
Yeah.
to me, it was like at times you're like, hey, the money's not important because I know like as an actor, a lot of actors can contest this. A lot of times we will make money on TV, films, and commercial, and then we'll take that money and put it right back in our career. And artists do that. We
Yeah.
constantly spend money on our craft. So that wasn't the issue to me. But then over time, it does become a constraint. You're like, well, I need. So I think with this, having other people invest in it, I think I'll have that, and it'll be great to have that because that kind of allows like great bringing a team together to tap into other resources, maybe get out of Atlanta, go to other cities, and maybe make it a wider project, and then from there, giving it to different platforms to distribute. So that's kind of where the cost would come in, but yeah, having that would allow us to project more outward.
Okay, awesome. And where can we follow you? Do you have a website?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Rodney M Roldan, and then you can follow me on Facebook at Rodney Roldan, and I have an actor page as well. And then for Country and Courage, it has its own Facebook page as well under Country and Courage.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So thank
Thank
you
you.
again for being here today, Rodney. Thank you for the interview. So I will keep you updated for the prizes and
Okay.
wishing you the best of luck. And I'll be sending the interview today through your email.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So talk to you soon.
All
Bye
right,
bye. Have
thanks.
a nice day.